This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. We're pleased to announce that we are now selling our physical magazines directly on our website. You can browse by magazine title or search for a particular issue using the search bar. To pay us a visit, please click the link in the description. Enjoy. The massive clamshell bucket, suspended from the end of a 75-foot crane boom, descended again and again into the muddy pit in southern Oklahoma. Like a prehistoric beast hungry for earth, the machine tore into the encroaching quicksand, each bite scooping out nearly 3/4 of a cubic yard. Yet with every scoop removed, more soil seemed to slip in to take its place. As the sun sank low on the horizon, the Schilling brothers watched in silent frustration. It was the final day of their rental contract for the heavy equipment, and their funds had been exhausted. Despite years of dreams and determination, the machine had failed to unearth the treasure they believed lay hidden beneath the soil, a legendary underground vault said to hold a fortune in Spanish silver. This marked the second time the brothers had been forced to halt their search, at least temporarily. The pit they had dug was 45 feet deep and spanned hundreds of feet across, carved first by bulldozer, then by backhoe, and finally by the clamshell rig. Their only discoveries so far were rotted timbers and rusted scraps of sheet metal, relics of an earlier attempt made years before by Phil and Finis Schilling, their father, and an old family friend known simply as the Old Man. Just as the sun hovered on the horizon, the clamshell bucket closed around something solid with a harsh, grating sound. The operator tried repeatedly to free the object, but it wouldn't budge. At last, he turned to the brothers and said with regret, "I've got to get this machine out of here before dark." And so ended another chapter in the Schillings' long and costly search, a quest that had begun in the fall of 1967, one into which they had poured their savings and their hopes. But the brothers remained undeterred. To them, this was just another delay in the hunt for what they believed to be $30 million in buried Spanish treasure. They were certain the vault was there, and after devoting much of their lives to the search, they had no plans to give up, not when they believed they were so close. The roots of this treasure legend stretch back to the 17th century, when the Spanish controlled what is now Oklahoma. The old Spanish trail once traced a path along the Red River, from the French territories of Louisiana to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Along this route was San Bernardo, a thriving Spanish trading post situated on the north bank of the Red River in what is now Jefferson County, Oklahoma. During this period, Spanish Catholic missionaries had also established a successful mission near modern-day San Saba, Texas, and were expanding further northward. Their goal was to colonize the region and create a network of missions, with the mother mission planned for what is now Pontotoc County, Oklahoma. It is believed that some gold and silver were brought into the area by the Spanish, and more may have been mined locally. Reports from the time describe significant gold mining activity in the Wichita Mountains, roughly 100 miles northwest of the mission site. Though modern prospectors have struggled to find profitable ore there, local legends continue to claim the region once held fabulously rich veins. Some silver was reportedly mined only a few hundred yards from the mission site. Even today, there are traces suggesting mining activity once took place there. Another mine, about 12 to 15 miles northwest, shows signs of having operated for a long period. Near this old mine is an ancient arrastre, a primitive milling device used to crush ore, and samples of silver-bearing rock can still be found nearby. Although Oklahoma is not typically known as a silver-producing state, official government records confirm that as late as 1914, several $1,000s worth of silver ore was shipped from a railhead near this very site. It was attributed to what locals call the Spanish Mine, a name that still stirs the imagination of treasure seekers like the Schilling brothers. Using the forced labor of Native Americans, including those brought from Mexico and others captured locally, the Spanish gathered their growing treasure and began construction of a mission in what is now southern Oklahoma. As part of the plan, a secure underground vault was to be built beneath the church to store the riches. This vault, constructed of dressed stone, would be buried deep underground and accessible only to the priests. Even the smelter, where the raw ore would be refined into gold and silver ingots or coins, was to be located within this subterranean chamber. To build it, the Spaniards first dug a deep vertical shaft, likely about 40 feet down, then excavated a large room at the bottom to house the vault. Initially, they used a windlass to hoist dirt from the hole, but it proved far too slow. Since they had an abundance of slave labor, they modified the shaft by creating a sloped passage on one side, allowing workers to carry the earth to the surface in baskets. Eventually, the vault was completed, and the already accumulated treasure was stored inside. The miners were then dispatched to nearby locations to continue extracting more ore, while construction on the main church proceeded. Up to that point, relations with surrounding tribes had remained relatively calm. But that peace was shattered when a messenger arrived from the mission at San Saba, bringing grave news. On March 16, 1758, more than 2,000 native warriors, primarily Comanche and their allies from the northern tribes, had attacked the mission and its presidio. The attackers were well armed and strategically led by a formidable Comanche chief. Fathers Terreros and Santi Esteban, along with 8 others, were killed, and the mission was looted and destroyed. Colonel Parilla, commander of the San Saba presidio, advised the northern missionaries to retreat to San Saba, where they could be better defended. He believed he could defeat the hostile tribes within a few weeks, after which the missionaries could safely return to the Red River mission. Heeding his advice, the group near the Red River decided to abandon the area temporarily. They sealed the treasure vault and filled in the shaft with earth. Being skilled surveyors, they also created a precise and detailed map of the site. Strategic markers were placed throughout the landscape so they could later relocate the vault with ease. Within days, the entire expedition began the journey southward. However, before they reached safety, their caravan was ambushed by many of the same warriors who had destroyed San Saba. Almost all members of the party were killed. A few survivors managed to reach San Saba, only to find the mission leaderless. Many of the escapees soon fled back to Mexico, abandoning all hope of returning to the northern mission site. In the years that followed, neither the Spanish nor the Mexicans attempted to recover the buried treasure. The combined threat of hostile tribes and the potential wrath of the Catholic Church kept even those who knew the location from trying. As decades passed, members of the original expedition died, many taking the secret of the treasure's location to their graves. Yet some survivors passed the story to their children. One such descendant was a man named Jose, his surname lost to time. His father had often told him the story of the doomed mission and had drawn a highly detailed map showing all the key landmarks. But Jose, burdened by the responsibility of raising a large family, could not act on this knowledge for many years. Only when his children were grown and he himself was an old man did Jose finally set out to find the long-lost treasure. His journey eventually led him to Ada, Oklahoma, near the heart of where the treasure was believed to be hidden. Unable to speak English and finding few in Oklahoma who understood Spanish, Jose quickly became a lonely, confused, and frightened old man in a foreign land. But fate intervened. He crossed paths with a local blacksmith and wheelwright, a kind man with a heart as vast as the prairie, who spoke a little Spanish. The blacksmith took Jose under his wing and soon learned the reason for his visit. He had come in search of a long-buried Spanish treasure. The blacksmith, who knew the surrounding countryside like the back of his hand, agreed to help Jose. In the spare hours between working the forge and fixing wagons, the two men searched the hills and woods together. But weeks passed with no success, and the fruitless search began to take its toll on the aging Jose. Disheartened and weary, he decided to return to Mexico to spend his final years among his own people. Before he left, Jose gave his treasure map to the blacksmith as a token of gratitude for the friendship and kindness shown to a lost and lonely stranger in a strange land. The blacksmith, now convinced of the treasure's reality, continued the search on his own. Years passed before he discovered the first marker, a row of red and white stones embedded in the ground. Their number and arrangement matched exactly the markings on Jose's old map. Encouraged, the aging blacksmith, now known by all simply as the Old Man, pressed on. Though considered eccentric for his unwavering belief in the buried treasure, he was liked and respected by everyone who knew him. Eventually, he located the second marker, a massive boulder that looked as if it had been cleaved in two by a giant's axe. Again, it matched the map perfectly. Once that boulder was found, the rest of the markers came easier, though some were buried several feet underground. With all the markers located, the Old Man plotted their positions on a topographical map. Drawing lines between the markers in a crisscross pattern, he discovered that all the lines intersected at a single point. To him, this confirmed the exact location of the buried vault. Now elderly, the blacksmith called upon a longtime friend, the father of Phil and Finis Schilling. The two older men, joined by Phil and Finis, began a careful search for the precise treasure spot. Once they believed they had pinpointed it, they decided to dig a test hole using a hand-operated auger, similar to those used for shallow water wells. After several days of digging, they struck something solid that halted their progress. While the Schilling brothers felt discouraged, the Old Man refused to give up. He retrieved a 35-foot-long steel sucker rod, typically used in oil fields, and forged a hardened chisel point at one end. With steady hands and unwavering resolve, he began probing the base of the test hole. The long rod was difficult to control, but after many days of jabbing into the earth, it suddenly broke through something solid. The rod dropped exactly 7 feet into what appeared to be a hollow space, a room or cavern. To the Old Man, there was no doubt they had found the treasure vault. Excitement surged through the group and they agreed to dig a full shaft. The skeptical landowner gave them permission on one condition, that they keep the shaft covered to protect his livestock. All summer long and whatever time they could spare from their day jobs, the group toiled at the site. As they dug, they began to uncover what appeared to be 3 of the original 4 walls of the underground structure. The location of the 4th wall remained a mystery, until they discovered it in a way that left no doubt in their minds. This was indeed the long-lost Spanish treasure site. At just over 10 feet deep, the diggers uncovered a layer of smooth, round white stones, exactly as the old map had indicated. At 15 feet, they struck a layer of charcoal and the bones of a small animal, suggesting that someone had once cooked a meal in the shaft itself. By the time they reached a depth of 22 feet, winter had set in. It was the heart of the Great Depression in the 1930s, and times were hard. Struggling financially, the group decided to pause their efforts. They covered the shaft with a makeshift roof of wooden poles and salvaged sheet iron, hoping to resume digging in the spring. But that winter proved to be one of the harshest in memory. Heavy snowfalls blanketed the region, and when the men returned in early spring, they found disaster. The weight of the snow had collapsed the roof, and one entire side of the shaft had caved in. Closer inspection revealed why they had previously failed to locate the 4th wall of the shaft. There was no 4th wall. That section had been left open, forming a sloped ramp to allow the original laborers to carry earth out in baskets. Further measurements showed that their initial augured test hole had been only 16 inches off-center from the heart of the vault. Despite their growing certainty that they were close to something significant, the group was forced to abandon the project due to a lack of funds and time. The Schilling brothers drifted away. One became a painter, the other a sheet metal worker. Life moved on, and as the years passed, they focused on raising families and building their futures. But they never let go of their dream of discovering the buried Spanish treasure. Their bond with the Old Man, the aging blacksmith who had first believed in Jose's story, remained strong throughout the years. Though well into his 90s by 1967, the Old Man's belief in the treasure never wavered. That fall, with his blessing, Phil and Finis Schilling returned to the site to continue the search. Unfortunately, circumstances once again forced them to halt operations. Still, the brothers were more convinced than ever that something valuable lay buried beneath the soil. Over the years, government flood control projects had altered the land. Dams had been constructed upstream, likely raising the water table several feet. This, the Schillings believed, accounted for the quicksand and water they encountered during their latest dig. Despite the setbacks, the Schilling brothers made a promise, to themselves, to their friends, and most of all to the old man, that the search was not over. It was only a pause. "More than for myself," Phil Schilling once said, "I'd like to find it for the old man. He's one of the grandest people I've ever known." And so perhaps one day Phil and Finis will find it yet. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.